maybe let me describe what we do, right? We have effectively converted your iPhone, any phone actually, to a motion capture facility.
Yep.
And we simply take, so the point is there's no special equipment. You just take a video and we're going to use computer vision and AI to convert your body movement to math. And when we do that, we're going to take that raw data and we're going to try to tell a story. And those stories are told with academically supported ergonomic assessment tools, which allow us to A, give a risk score, but B, give us what the root cause analysis is. And again, the point of all of this is to find a way to come up with a solution. So right away from our system here, let me just go down to the waveform so you can see this in real time, is, again, we've got a video, and that color-coded skeleton overlay is showing you where the challenges are, which is the back. And if we come over here to our waveforms, what you would see is this short little 45-second video is 56% of the time we're exceeding a 45-degree threshold. Again, we know that is a threshold that's supported by ergonomics where we want to focus. And there's lots of other data that we're collecting, like speed and calculating torque. We take that raw data, as I told you, and turn that into a story. And the story we would use for this one would be NIOSH lifting equation. And what you would see is we actually rank the 5 lifts that this person's doing. And so we can very quickly see it's the first 2 lifts that are the biggest challenge. And why is that? You can see the origin is always the same, but the destination actually is getting higher. So he's bending over less as it gets higher. He's also, the last 3 lifts are lower weight. But if we were to drill down into each one of those, what you would find is on this first lift, we're lifting something that's 42 pounds. And given the metrics on how he's moving it, it should be closer to 17 pounds. And the primary reason for that is due to the horizontal hand location. And so effectively, it's the distance, both vertically and horizontally, that he's traveling with the item that make a difference. And so, again, what we can see that very quickly from the system, and then it's, well, what would be the potential solution? And so we would go through our system and just click on potential solutions, where what we're going to tell you is raise that workstation height by 35 to 37 inches.
Right. Yeah. Put it on top of a couple pallets.
Yep. That's a very simple, at least the origin, you would stick under 3 or 4 pallets. That would bring that top up. And the CapEx to do that is relatively inexpensive, right? So.
Right. Hey, I'm Nate Wheeler. I am the host of Manufacturing Insiders Podcast. Really want to thank you for joining today. I hope that you learned some really great insights from this manufacturing leader that you're about to hear from. I also hope that you'll go ahead and hit that like button on the video and subscribe to our channel so you can see more of the stuff that comes out as we're continuing to publish content. Every like, every subscribe really helps us get this message out. And the message that we're sharing is really just a message of hope for manufacturers. I understand, I work with you guys every day. I understand how many different obstacles are in your faces, from technology to government regulations to competition from foreign and domestic markets. And I really want to share strategies with you on how to deal with these issues. And I think there's no better way to learn than hearing directly from somebody that solves some of these challenges. Thanks for watching today, and look forward to seeing you soon.
We started spending a lot of time with our customers asking, what do you need to see? We were slow out of the gate in terms of getting traction. And so spending time with, these small and large customers trying to figure out where's the value. And so what we ended up doing was building the academically supported assessment tools on top of the underlying technology, because that's what the ergonomists or safety teams were used to using. Right. And so it's kind of a story of, you've got to be careful if you are a new technology. Sometimes the adoption curve on that can be lengthy. So you've got to have some of that old technology built in there, because that's the way people are used to seeing it. But we use the new technology to effectively auto-populate that. And so think of it as, what are we ultimately doing? We're dramatically increasing the productivity of the ergonomist or of the safety team. So what used to take them hours to do now takes them minutes. Second, the consistency of the information is objective. So the computer is seeing the math and telling you where the most challenging points are versus the subjectivity of the human picking where those points are. And so management teams feel much, much more at ease with the fact that the information that's coming to them is consistent and right and objective.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because I can see, a professional in this space without the use of a technical tool like this, they may have a little obsession with back issues or knee issues or whatever, and be a little bit too hyper focused on that where they aren't seeing the whole picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does it work? So let's say you have, I don't know, it looks like the guy there was working maybe in a machine shop. So you have a large machine shop. When you go into a place like this, how do you identify how many different workstations you're gonna, get a video recording? How many workers do you? How long does it take? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. No, it's good question, because what you had seen was exactly that. It was a machine shop where maybe for 10 minutes they're going to do something, and then the next 10 minutes they're doing something else. So it's maybe the better analogy is like construction, where again you're doing something for small pockets of time. And so what you would do is you would come in and you're going to choose some of the most challenging tasks. And so again, those videos are built on task analysis. And then ultimately what we do is we try to go back and look at all those tasks to figure out which ones are the highest priority that we want to focus on. Maybe we can't focus on all of them at once. Let's figure out what the most challenging ones are. Let's try to get those, put behind us. So again, when I showed you bending over, wow, that's real simple. Can we bring in sawhorses? Can we, as you saw, stack things on pallets? It gets more complex over time because you've got to, we had a situation with a manufacturing company where in the logistics department, all the product would come in on rollers on the floor. So somebody would bend down, pick that up, walk it over to the pallet for the proper distribution center, bend over and put it into that pallet. And again, that was happening all day. So lots of complaints about back problems. So again, simple situation where if we can come in and the product is brought up at waist height, that is an example, you're not bending over. If you have the destination, meaning the pallet for the distribution center on adjustable height levels, again, you avoid having to bend over to fill those things up. And again, we saw a dramatic reduction in back issues and back complaints.
Interesting.
Now, it's hard to put an ROI on that.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say was, being kind of a newer product to market, I've had the experience as an entrepreneur also of how do you establish your credibility? You can do the work, but how do you get this company to trust you because you haven't worked with somebody to that level yet? So in your space, a case study, when you're bringing new technology, it's great to say, hey, we saved XYZ company, whatever, 20%, whatever in lost time, or we increased their profits, et cetera. These are things that take time to play out, right? Like back issues don't just develop overnight. And so I was going to ask you, like, do you have some concrete examples? It sounds like you do have one that showed pretty quick results.
Yeah, great question, because, given my background, everything is based on return on investment, right? And so I spent a lot of time as we were going out to customers, return on investment, because it's quite substantial. And the reason for that is, MSD injuries is actually the number one cause of injury in the U.S. When you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, again, strains, sprains, number one cause of injury for multiple years in a row. And the cost is very high. The average cost is $35,000. And it's a cumulative injury that happens over time. And then it's cumulative unwind, meaning it takes years to unwind that, either through physical therapy, surgery, chiropractor, things of that nature. So it's very costly. So the ROI is quite exceptional. and the number of incidents are very high. And so the challenge is it's very easy to put an ROI on the reduction in incidents. It's not as easy to put an ROI on, I went out and did 300 assessments and they were all high priority, and I was able to reduce all of those from high priorities to low priorities. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's because it's cumulative. It takes time for that to filter through to see a reduction in incident rates where you can actually put an ROI on that.
Right. Yeah. So it would take some time to have that accumulation. But then also, I would think that once you started to use this software, your operation is going to change from time to time. You're going to set up different machines. You're going to be running different parts. You're going to have different workstations. So is there a vision for the chief safety officer inside of a company to actually have this on their phone? And then whenever things change or they see a new worker doing a new activity, they can analyze that specific activity?
Yeah, you got to remember, as you said, everything changes. Meaning you might have designed a specific line to look and feel a certain way, and as soon as it gets out to the factory floor, built on the factory floor, it does change in some cases very quickly. And then so does your personnel. You've got churn of your personnel and changes, and so you might have a 6'5" male and a 5-foot male. Again, both working on the same line. So you might have to think about, how do I redesign portions of the line to work for different types of people? So again, it's always something that's constantly changing. Second, you never get to the full population in a year. Typically, the way we see this working is maybe you get to 20% of your workforce each year where you're making changes. It doesn't take as much time to do the assessments. It takes time to do that iterative process to get it to a point where it's going to work for the vast majority of the employees.